Well, we're going to look at four things, right? Which are kind of four key drivers or drivers and metrics in a PF deal. We're going to look at the IRR. We're going to look at the tariff. Now, I'm calling it tariff, but it's kind of pricing of any kind, right? I'm going to make reference to renewables model because, it's a single tariff. It's pretty straightforward, and revenue is, tariff times generation. So it's pretty straightforward to understand. But not all PF deals are as straightforward. And we're going to look at the ratios, by which we mean the debt ratios, and we're going to look at leverage. So when we're kind of coming up to, if we're working on a bid, we're part of a competitive tendering project. We're one developer amongst a group who are bidding for a project. What do we need our model to do? Well, at this point, pre-bid, we're going to be generally inputting a target IRR, whatever that might be, and that's going to vary by country, by sector. But what we want our model to do is we want to enter, input our IRR and have the model figure out what the tariff is. So at this stage, tariff is an output, right? And IRR is an input. Now that's not universally true, but generally speaking, that's how we run it, because the projects that we're working on, we'll have a certain target IRR that we're looking for, and that of course can change. And as we get closer to the bid and we realize that maybe our pricing is not where it needs to be to win this thing, IRR is maybe one of the things that we shift a little bit. But as other inputs change, like capex or opex or yield, we want to be able to input those and then run the model, and the model tells us what the tariff needs to be. Now, generally at this stage, our debt ratios are also an input, because let's say we're getting, and again, these are generalities, there are exceptions, but we're generally, getting some debt sizing metrics from lenders. And it might be that, it's a P90 1.2 or it's a P50 1.3, whatever it might be. We're getting that debt sizing metric as an input. And so we want the model to size the debt based on that input and to tell us what the leverage is going to be, right? How much debt? What's the debt capacity? And so you can see that the model needs to be able to solve a couple of things simultaneously, right? It needs to be able to figure out the tariff for a given IRR. And of course, as the model changes the tariff to reach the IRR, then the debt size is going to change. And so it's kind of, how are we solving all that simultaneously? Then we get to bid stage, and that changes, right? We've after the bid goes in, right? Let's say we've been lucky enough to be the successful tenderer. Well, at that point, we've fixed the price here, right? So now the tariff is an input, because it's not going to change post-bid. There may be some limited circumstances under which it could be adjusted, for example, swap rates or whatever. But at that point, right now, the tariff is fixed. So the tariff becomes an input, and the IRR is going to move around. Let's say we've got some, our EPC assumptions wrong, or they've just, time moves on and they get updated, or, that we get, a different sense of what the yield is going to be. Well, the tariff at this point isn't going to move, and because it's we've made our bed, as it were. So at this point now, the IRR is going to move around, but we haven't yet fixed the debt package. So the ratio is still an input and the leverage is an output. Then we reach financial close and we fix the debt package. We sign the documents, and at that point, everything is shifted, right? We've gone completely to the opposite of where we started, because tariff is now an input, but also leverage is an input. The amount of debt is an input, shall we say. So the debt quantum is an input, and the drawdown profiles are set. And now the ratios are going to be the thing that moves around. And so typically when lenders are looking for sensitivities, they're often looking for post-financial close sensitivities, right? Where we fix the leverage, we fix the tariff, and we run some downside cases. We might be running, if it's a renewables deal, we might be running like a P99 case to show, what is that extreme downside on the yield, and we want to know, does the ratio stay above 1 at that point? And so we need the ratios to move around. So you can see that the model needs to behave very differently depending on where we are in the transaction. Now, does that make sense so far? I'm just looking at the chat. Hello, Kanjan, good to see you here. Isaiah, just great to see Ibn, Bright, great to see some familiar names. Any questions about that so far? Does that make sense? All good? Okay, so let me move on and just show you how we do that in the model. Now, I'm not going to build a model in front of you. We do that in our courses. And if you want to know, dig into how to build models, and more education on that, I'll talk a bit about that at the end in terms of some of the free resources and paid resources that we have. So let me just switch to a model. All right, let me just escape from here, and let me just shut down this, and we'll share this stuff after.